We have a motion, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
So, we had an executive session and we'll correct some errors on Tuesday with salary rate performance.
Okay.
Okay? I'm gonna have Heather go next.
She can.
Well, that's, I mean,
I just got an email from her that clarifies something that maybe.
Heather, come on up. We'll put you up there.
Get you done so you can get out.
And I just saw your email, so I don't know if we.
This is a bunch of question marks, so this is welcome my comedy of errors is what this is, so it's learning. But I apologize for how I sound. I sound worse than I actually am, so.
I know the feeling.
It's a thing going around for sure. So, kind of the beginning of this whole thing is I got a notice from our pictometry rep in, I believe it was the 9th of September is when she finally got a hold of me, saying that they've been trying to invoice us since January, and apparently it took them 9 months to realize the email they were going to send it to didn't work. And finally got a hold of our regional rep to get a hold of me and say, hey, we got this invoice that needs to pay. The question now is how to move forward with paying it. It's $52.80 is the amount for the bill. I have a total, what do we say in my budget, 48 grand total. Close to that, something like that.
You have, yeah, 40, well,
A little under.
47,000.
Yeah. That I can put towards this if I reconsolidate everything in my budget to push in and push out. The epiphany I had, actually on my way down here this morning, was that other departments are all supposed to have a certain amount of money set aside to help pay for this. So this is one of those things where if I'd gotten this invoice back in January like I was supposed to, we probably would have walked through this process just fine and wouldn't have had any issues. But we're now down to the last minute. I'm not quite sure the best way to proceed, and that is why I am here right now.
And I just got Heather's email. So what I can do is, because I don't have last year's budget book, last year's budget book should have how much everybody was going to put into this.
Mm-hmm.
So I can make sure they still have budget authority. If they do,
Okay.
then it's fine. So this, now we kind of don't need 2 days on this. Because the funds are now worked out, I think.
That's what I want to make sure of is do we need to actually still do something involving you guys, or can we take care of this? This is new for me, I don't know. So
I believe
I'm
they can
trying to-
take care of it. If by some crazy chance I can't find enough funds to cover the bill, then I bring the difference to you to pay out of contingency.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we have to.
We're 5,000 short from being able to pay it out of GIS's budget, so I'm pretty sure we'll be going to be able to find the money in the other departments, so you will most likely not be needed.
Do you want us to make a motion just to help expedite the process, if that helps anything?
No, because what I'll do is I'll just bring it before you and the full board has to sign it anyways.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
or the majority of the board, whoever's present.
Okay.
So I think we'll have it covered. So,
Okay. So you guys need to get a hold of me and you'll figure out. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that is short and sweet then. Thank you. Sorry, this has been a little bit of a process, so.
It's all good.
Thank you.
All right. Are you here for Wes?
Yes.
Okay, come on up.
Charity Stagg, Southeast Idaho Council of Governments. I'm here to present the final submittal for the Community Wildfire Defense Grant. It went through some changes. Unfortunately, it's a first-year program, so they rolled it out quickly and are still kind of working out what they want to do. So I came up with a new intent that I hope matched Bannock County's intent as best as I could, but also still matched the grant and made it competitive.
Any questions, concerns?
Is there a match on this?
There is a 25% match.
26,000.
Yep.
But we're thinking that this would potentially be awarded next spring. The match might be able to be budgeted in FY '24.
Is the match hard cash, or is the match also counted as staff hours and in-kind donations?
Right now, it's hard cash because we don't have any letters of
Expense
support.
count to it.
But there is potential for in-kind in the future if we can get some volunteers and start tracking their volunteer hours.
But with the issue we had on the last grant, where we had an in-kind match, it would be beneficial to maybe anticipate hard cash and be pleasantly
Yeah.
surprised if...
No, anticipate the hard cash, but then, yeah, but then you take your admin fees and, yeah.
And
got
we
it.
do have some grant match money budgeted, but that's been earmarked for the Safety and Assessment Center because we have so much unknown with that right now. I would hate this early in the game, since it's not even October, to anticipate needing to use those dollars. So the FY '24 option is, I think, a good option because we can plan for it.
Okay.
Procurement could pay for the FY budget in October when we would actually need the funds.
Okay. All right.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve submittal of the grant as presented.
Motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, looks like Kyle.
Morning, everybody. Kyle Burmester, Bannock County Public Works Director. I just haven't passed around, this is a little thing that we were going to put out for landfill remediation to the public and website, but since we had to hold off because of budget, you know, the dates on the second page are going to be changed before we send that out. But that's just kind of a little bit, quick brief thing of what this pilot program is that we're doing. As you know, we for expansion, we kind of pushed back some of this stuff, so this is what we were going to do in this fiscal year. I'm just trying to get task order 11 for FY '23 so that we can get going right off the bat.
You know, with this, I'd really like to have, because there's some pretty high-level engineering and science involved in this, I think it would be good to, if you're going to put this out to the public, is I do it in coordination with Emma. I would make sure that it actually goes out and that you guys have the question and answer page, because there's people that are not going to understand what the slurry is and what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And we have
good stuff too. This is good stuff, but it's just, you know, we need to make sure just not put this out because some people won't understand what you're injecting and what slurry.
So what it does is we got that virtual website, that's what it's gonna go on, and then we have a box right below it that has questions, and it goes directly to the engineering group.
Okay, I would concur with Commissioner Tubby. Make sure you work with Emma to get out some other broadcasts to get people here to see.
I would put something out in front of it to get out in front of.
Yeah, and we were getting all geared up with Emma for that because it was gonna start in the fall. But
Yes.
now we had to push it back because it is a pretty neat thing that's gonna go on, and so we wanted to kind of get it out there, you know, what's going on.
Well, tell us behind why we're doing it.
Yes. But for this task, it's got everything that we're going to be doing. It's an adaptive management kind of agreement to where we don't want to be locked in. That's why it's kind of a pilot program, is we don't want to say that we're drilling 5 wells and then be locked into drilling 5 wells. We want to just do what's needed. So like last year, how we cut $1 million out of it, we're not locking ourselves into this amount that's on here. It's just, that's what we think we'll have to use, but we can adaptively manage which direction we go.
Cool.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve task order number 11 for CDM Smith.
we have a motion, all in favor, say aye.
It's feeling better. You sound pretty rough.
I'm good.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, Shanda.
Good morning, Shannon Crystal, Purchasing and Economic Analyst. I have 5 items before the board today. We'll start with the review and a request for signature on a contract with Night Owl Janitorial for office cleaning services. We went out to bid, and Night Owl was awarded janitorial services. The contract has been through legal. We did add a little bit upon their recommendation, clarifying. Bannock County will still be providing the paper products that go in all of our dispensers, but all of the cleaning products, all of the equipment, all of that, other items that they'll need to use to clean the facilities, right, that will be all in there. We added a little bit of clarification language in number 9, where it says the equipment, tools, materials, and supplies. And other than that, the company came yesterday for a walkthrough with Dan. That went well. They're getting acquainted with the facility and some of the security as they go through different things. And then the plan is that they'll start on Monday.
Any issues come up during the walkthrough yesterday that you weren't aware of or prepared for?
No, security was really great with working with us on the key system, and then one of the current part-time employees is actually going to stay on with this company, so that'll be good to have someone that's familiar with everything. So I think it's going to go great.
Okay. So Brian, you good with the way 9 reads with changes to the paper goods and stuff?
Yeah, I believe Alan was reviewing it in the office, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We were working with Alan, and he did review it, and said, he was the one that recommended we put in a little bit of additional language there.
Okay.
So that's
Well, I'm excited to see how this works out.
Nope.
Me too.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we sign the agreement with Night Owl Janitorial.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are we paying them monthly, I'm assuming? Anticipating that they're amazing.
Sorry. No, it's just,
That one goes to Nancy.
Item number 2 is that we wanted to review the cell phone stipends that we had talked about last week. A couple different things in regards to them. We have 2 employees that have switched over and tried the eSIM cards, and that is working out well so far, but we are pushing pause on making adjustments thus far. I have reached out to Christy and Ryan. We're going to meet here in a couple weeks on the 12th and start putting together a proposal for the board to review as far as moving forward on options, right? What employees are eligible to have a county cell phone, if they have a cell phone, if they have a stipend, if they do an eSIM reimbursement thing. So we're going to get a framework for that put up and to review before the board. And the 2 that we have switched over, we have then turned from, we had county cell phones budgeted, and we have now made a resolution to ask the board to move the funds both, so one month this year in fiscal year 22, and then for the remaining 12 months of fiscal year 23 to move those funds from paying a cell phone to a stipend to those employees. And that is Jeff Huff and Scott Crowley.
That resolution will be on Tuesday's agenda.
Okay.
I sent it to Amy, and that's the day she opted to put it.
Okay.
And there's sufficient funding for this year, so there was no need to move money.
Okay. All right.
Correct. Okay. Item number 3 I have is a meeting facility use request form with the city of Chubbuck. Wendy over there with the city of Chubbuck is just fantastic. She is super helpful. I have really enjoyed working with her. The form before you today is to use their multi-purpose room for the PMP training in the end of October. The training itself will go from about 8:30 to 4:30. We will need to set up and take down. That will be arranged just with the participants we have in the class. I'll arrange for a few of them to come early, right, get set up, and for a couple of them to stay late with me and get it taken down. But other than that, there's no charge for the facility, and they just need a signature saying that we're going to be there and abide by their rules.
Motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve signature for the meeting facility use for Workchubbick.
Motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. And along those same lines, in the PMP training is the invoice before you. So that has a list of the 20 students that have, and I say confirmed gently because nobody, until we know, and you just signed for the room, we now have official dates. So now that we have official dates, I'm reaching out to everybody, confirming or denying. We've had one switch out already, but the company is fantastic and we can make that switch up until the day of the class. If there's an emergency and somebody needs to pull out, we can interchange and put another employee in their spot. So I'll email out all the departments and let them know when the training has been scheduled and then confirm who's going to be on that list, but these are the initial 20 people that we have. And then we do need to discuss the funding. Again, some of the departments, most of them, other than GIS, because she said that she had funding. So however that works out with the other payment, most of the other departments have responded back that they have funds for the
GIS doesn't have funds anymore.
Right.
They just changed that.
Yeah, so she might need some assistance. But then Chrissy had also mentioned that the county operations have the funds to pay for it as well. So I just need guidance on how to move forward.
I would like the departments to pay for it.
And as I was looking at this, I was kind of thinking like the repay that we do for fuel and stuff, we could go ahead and write the check and then have the...
Not at year end, because I don't have time to reimburse the fund for that.
Okay.
Today's the 30th. That would have to have been turned in last week if we were going to reimburse ourselves for that. So it's just easier if you've got departments that can pay for it, then just put the coding on it, they can pay for it, and if there's somebody that's short, then you could use county operations to pay the difference, or, I don't even know, I think I've got 2 people signed up, and I don't even know how much it is, so I don't know if I've got money. I'm assuming.
Yours is
Those were later.
$5,000, everybody else is $1,095.
I can find that. County operations.
Well, I'd use it out of the end contingency of this year as it's closing. If we can pay it out of this year, wherever we do it coming out of this year so we don't short next year's budgets, because then that leaves additional training dollars for that stuff. I would do it out of this year. Whether we move the money or not, I think that's kind of irrelevant at this point because we're at the end of the year cycle. So to pay for it, get people spun up and get them going on this.
And I agree with that, but I also agree with Jeff, that the department should be responsible.
Yes, it should.
And that should be the process is, don't expect the commissioners to pay it out of general funds. Just you budget money for training for your employees.
The only difference is this is an unanticipated.
Yeah, it is.
So there was a lot of people that maybe have sufficient funds in their budget, but where this wasn't anticipated through last year's budget cycle or even next year's budget cycle, they may not have the funding, and this is a rather expensive training compared to
It is.
But we're going
other
to train people the right way.
Yes, but if they have funds, definitely we can have them pay for it. I just meant
Yeah.
if someone doesn't have funds,
Take it out of
if
general.
county operations could pay the difference, because you will have sufficient funds rolling forward.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And that is, Chrissy brings up a good point, that up until we knew the number of individuals going, we weren't certain on the dollar amount, so I can follow up with dates and a final dollar amount, and then confirm if they have funding, if they don't, if they need help, we can get the invoice coded accordingly, and then have the remainder that is, that they can't cover come out of county operations.
Okay.
And then the other part on this is, we had a lot of people originally show interest, and then some of that interest fell off. So we picked out of the people that showed interest right up to the end. And if some of them aren't on here, then they'll be available next year or whatever. But we can't go and keep asking each department, well, you sure you don't want this one? So anyway, we're going to go with the people that you have here.
And I do think it'll be a fantastic opportunity for, IT, Adam is signed up, that he'll go and attend the training and then understand how it's going to work in his office, and then be like, oh, Janie could have really used, right? And then, as you mentioned, on future years that we do this, then great, then he'll know exactly how to implement it and which employees need to go.
And same deal with auditing, right? And just know better how to fit it into their world, and then who would benefit from the training. Okay, we'll move forward with that. My last, number 5, is a procurement update. It's been a little bit before, since I've been before the board, so we do have quite a few. I'll go just as quickly as I can, or you can stop me with any questions that will come. The first one, the juvenile program for the safety and assessment building subcontractors. So Wednesday, we did get the final civil engineered drawings returned back to us. And so then we have, yesterday, applied for the building permit, which was great. That solicitation also went out yesterday as well to all of our subcontractors that have been registered for us. I submitted those to Headwater. They got invited, as well as thousands of subcontractors that Headwater has in store. So I'm excited about the number of local individuals that have been invited to participate. I think this will be for a great project as we move forward on that one. We do have a bid opening scheduled. I did ask, it's not going to be with the board, as these individuals are going to be contract with Headwaters. They are following all of our same rules. They're following Idaho code just as we would do it, but they are subcontracting with Headwaters. Headwaters is who we are going to pay for their services, and they're going to manage those subcontractors. But having that said, I really wanted the bid opening to be here at Bannock County. That is our project, that it's our, it's going to be built across the street from here. I wanted the subcontractors to get a feel for who we are and the exciting for the project. So we are going to do that in 2/8. No, we've scheduled here. The board is out of the office on the 13th of October, maybe? Okay, fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and do it here in the chambers, and they have a wonderful process set forward that documents everything just as we would. So the board, if you want to, if you're available, an individual is more than welcome to attend, but it's going to be different than other bid openings that we've had.
Okay.
But we're excited that that one is moving forward a little bit at a time. The second one is the ambulance power cut. This is the first time that the cost of the cut has dipped over into the $50,000 range. So we are learning how to bid that out appropriately, and we are looking at potential sole source. But we are looking at some interchangeability in between. That's the same cut that they've had for all of their units, but we're looking at some of the justification required, and then we're going to schedule a meeting with legal here in a couple of weeks to have that reviewed before we bring it to the board, and or we'll put it out to bid, however that one rolls out. For GIS and the aerial imagery, that one is coming down to its final details that we're wrapping up there with Heather, and I anticipate that being before the board to review the end of October to line up with the time frame that she has set. For the jail, the detention center roof, we did come up with a couple hurdles in developing that scope of work. Over the years that we have patched and done different things on that roof, it has made it difficult to describe the different sections of that roof adequately enough for a contractor to be able to bid on it. But in working with Booth Architecture, who has done the redraw for us, we feel that we've got a good information for contractors to know what we're up against, and then as we do the pre-bid meeting, we'll all be out there and be able to see it. They'll be able to ask questions. So we've come up with a little bit of hurdle, but we have a path forward to get that one, at least that pre-bid before the snow flags, so then we can get it awarded and get product coming. We also went out to bid for the salt, the road salt for road and bridge. That was posted on Sunday for the first time, and it will do one more week on the following Sunday, and it closes on the 13th of October, and we'll open it when the board is back together on the 14th. The concealed weapons detection for maintenance, that is closed. We went out for RFI. We did receive 2 companies back, gave information to us, and I was looking for guidance on the next step. Did you want a few individuals to review and kind of have information ready? Did you want a big group of the commission, the courts, the sheriff's office? Okay, I just needed guidance on what next step we do have.
I would have a small group of not larger than 5 people, and go through and review and see if either one has, and determine specking, see what they offer, see what's there, and then write the RFP out.
I would,
Or do you want to do an RFQ?
no, but I just would like a recommendation before the board on how we proceed before we go out.
What I would do with the recommendation coming back before the board then is that group's going to review and say, hey, these are the things that we see that are cool between, that both these companies can offer whatever is there, or is there only one company that can kind of offer what you need or however, but you're going to get a set of specs that is really what you need. That set of specs is going to come back, and then that's going to be the basis in your RFP to say, hey, this is what we need, and we want a request for proposal.
Okay, okay, as long, okay.
And then it'll be to them to say, for us to come in to do this, for these specs and these items that are granted, it's going to be
X amount of dollars.
X amount of dollars. And then whoever gives you the RFP that fits what we want and the bid, that's what you take.
And I do think there's going to be a little, we do have money in the budget, but not knowing what was out there or the direction that they want to head, I don't know how well we're going to fit in there. But, and then at least once we RFP, then we'll know dollar amounts, right?
Yes.
Are we willing to put other funds towards it? Are we in the ballpark? Do we want to adjust our scope of work? But I believe there'll be more detailed information after that happens.
Yes.
Are there individuals that you would recommend or departments that you would recommend that I pull from for about the 5-person group to look through and evaluate and make that recommendation?
Right here, let's go with Adam, let's go with the sheriff's office,
I have Dan on there.
and Dan and Carrie.
That'll give you a high level.
Somebody in the players, in each one.
Perfect. I'll get out to that group and get the information out there and get a time frame on when they can have a recommendation back for the board. We did just talk about the cleaning and the walkthrough that happened, so that one's moving right along. And then I did want to report that Dan does have a process set in place of reviewing and reporting back. So, right, as the cleaning company goes out and says that, right, I did those things that you asked me to do, then he has employees go out and say to inspect. Was it to our standard? Did they do what they said that they did? Did they cut corners? Did they do fantastic? So he's got a great, process. Do it, report back, right? And then we'll check back in about 30 days to see how things are going, right? If there's things that we need to adjust and change and have conversations with the company, then we'll have those conversations, but he's got that in place already that we're confident at least we'll have the communication of how well things are going or places that we can do better. The last thing I wanted to touch on was the historical museum roof. So the metal has all been removed from the roof finally. That was a tough order by the way that it was put on there to begin with. It took quite a while to get that removed. But then they'll be getting shingle here, and that should only take about a week-ish, and it should be done. Then we'll work with HR to move forward with correcting the problems that the water damage caused on the inside of it. But then get one roof done and complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm never used to doing this, so if I do something wrong, just stop me, okay?
That's why Jason's here, or Braden's here to escort
Sounds
people
neat.
out.
Fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so, I am here because I got a couple of things. I figured if I'm gonna be here, I just will cover everything that I've got going on so that, I'm good to go, so bear with me. I'm gonna start with the most important thing and work my way down to the end, so if we run out of time or whatever, you can shut me up and we can quit. The first thing I need to talk about is the HIPAA compliance in my office. We are really pretty darn good. We're way better than what we were in the old days of the annex building with open ceilings. But there's still some room for improvement. It's been pointed out to us recently with some staffing changes at the university that we do have room for improvement for our HIPAA policies. One of them would be the placement of where the fax machine is at the university. So the fax machine at the university is on a back counter behind the front reception desk. Bannock County, we are the ones who use that fax machine the most, and that's because medical records cannot be emailed. So they have to be faxed or mailed or hand-delivered. We handle medical records on a daily basis. Somebody had recognized that there was a fax that had come into this fax machine that is a shared fax machine that had sat there because nobody was in the office, and it had sat there, and they felt like that was a HIPAA violation. They're totally right. There is the perception of we have some privacy things because it is behind a desk, but it's not a locked room. So one of the corrections for that would be that we move a fax machine into my office that locks. The problem is my office doesn't have room for another device, but I have a copy machine that can be used. It's a scanner, a copy machine, and a printer, and it has the capability to do fax machines as well. But my machine is old and obsolete, so they do not have the equipment to upgrade my machine to include the fax. So Valley Office Systems, Gary at Valley Office Systems did a little research for me. I asked for some more clarification, or I would have had this information for you guys today, but the first machine that he sent me information on, what it sounds like is we can purchase it for $2,363. It'll have all of the stuff. It'll do the fax, the copies, the printer, and the scanner. It's one machine, so it'll just replace the machine that I have, so it won't be the space issue. What I needed clarification on from him, because I wasn't sure in the document that he gave me, was he said that there's a 48-month lease of $57. So I don't know if that means you can purchase it for $2,363 or you can lease it for $57 a month. And I looked for clarification because I'm not smart enough to know that. So I'm here to say this is what's happening. I don't know yet. Maybe somebody else might know.
I'll just tell you on any of that type of equipment, if you get with Adam, and Adam will know,
Okay.
and give you direction and know what you need and make sure that it
That I'm
fits.
getting the right stuff.
Actually,
We may actually have something, if you're looking for a multi-function copy scanner fax, we have a few devices that we've taken from other places that may fit the bill for you, that we can get for you guys.
Okay.
so are you sending a lot of faxes or are you just receiving faxes?
We both. I mean, we use, the fax machine is the majority of it. I'll bet that the university itself only uses the fax machine 5 times a year. I probably use it 5 times a day, either in or out.
Adam, is there a digital solution we could use instead of having to buy a piece of equipment?
So we looked at eFax before. It's pretty expensive is the downside to it, and it doesn't really change the sending. It changes the receiving side. Like, there are digital fax inboxes where you change a number and people would send it. It would basically show up in your email. You can print it. The downside is sending back out, it becomes more of an issue. So if you're actually sending faxes, it's easier to have a device and fax machine. But like I said, we've got some multi-function devices that we recouped from other departments that might fit the bill for you and replace your existing piece of equipment with something that's currently supported. And we could look at that. Another thing is, $2,300 to me is prohibitively higher than what we normally get. Some of the stuff we've gotten, multi-function devices with fax machines, a lot lower than that. So let's have a conversation and we'll see what we can find for you.
Super. There was also some questions that I had with them about, he had sent over 1,000 copies of black for $20 a month, and then my color copies at .69 cents a click, which is not what my original contract is for maintenance and stuff on my machine. And I had sent that over to them as well, so maybe that's something that we can talk to. So super.
Yeah,
I will chat, and then when we finally get something back, but you guys should know, there are some concerns that I think are valid. I think some of it is an overkill, because I think we do have a perception. We are doing our best within the parameters of what we have. And I think as long as a partnership, everything was okay, it would be fine, but it's not, so it's not okay. So we need to clean that HIPAA stuff up.
Well, if there's problems with our partnership there, let us know, and we'll have a visit with President Satterley.
I'm working on it before I escalate it to that point, because I'm a firm believer in chain of command. So I'm trying to fix in-house. If it's not, I will absolutely do that, because.
Well, our chain goes a little bit different direction than yours.
So that's a support organization. Your chain just goes, it doesn't include anyone in ISU. It just goes straight to us and then us to us.
I'm trying to play nice in the sandbox, because I have to live there, and I don't like, I'll be perfect, can I be honest?
If you'd like.
You are on the record.
I am on the record. I have to tell you, my job's incredibly stressful. I listen to people talk about military sexual trauma and combat issues all day long. I cannot work in an environment where the tension is stronger outside of my office than inside of my office. That problem has to be corrected, and I believe I need to be more willing to go and have a conversation and try to correct that inside the office. If that issue does not get corrected, I will be bringing it back for a formal conversation, because in the 20 years that I have done this job, I have never been in an environment that is this uncomfortable. So, okay, having said that, the next thing to correct our HIPAA issue is that when we are not in the office, if somebody brings in a document, because we do share a space, if somebody comes in and brings something, they would like us to have a locking mailbox for our documents to be placed into an envelope, the envelope sealed, signature across the seal, the envelope placed into the locking mailbox hung on the wall. So I will need to be purchasing a locking mailbox to accommodate that process. The other thing's not going to be that big of a deal, and that is putting privacy screens on our computers, so that as people walk around, that isn't something, that they're able to see just accidentally or on purpose. That probably should have been all along, but again, I overlooked it in the area. And then the other thing that I will eventually, I feel like is important for the credibility of my department, is that we will do some type of written policy on HIPAA, so that it is a matter of our program itself, of how we handle it, how we do those things. So that might be something that I need to work with Josh and Ryan on, getting that taken care of, so that it is formal. Okay, so I think I beat the dead horse on the whole fax machine, and I'll get with Adam and we'll figure something else out, and then let you know how that process is out. So that brings me to to issue number 2. We had tried for a year to have our office open 5 days a week. So I worked the front end of the week and Lillian worked the back end of the week, and we did 10-hour days. I would like to switch that back to 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, just simply because the consistency, I think, for veterans is more important than the availability. That's what I found in that year of time frame. So I'd like to switch that back, and unless you guys have any heartburn about me going back to Monday through Thursday for my office operations.
Well, I'll just tell you, I have a concern about 10-hour shifts, and the way we pay our holidays.
We have already been on the 10-hour shifts. We have been 10-hour shifts.
So you've been one of them that have gotten extra money that shouldn't have been happening.
Very possible.
I'll just tell you, you've gotten 20 more hours of pay that somebody else didn't get.
Sure, very possible.
So
there is that.
if you go to the 410s, there will be a discussion about what happens in compensation on holidays.
Right. We are already on 410s. We already do that, so when that discussion happens, and I was in the meeting when we had discussed that, or when that was brought up, so I understand that there might be some changes to that policy.
No, we will have a policy that we follow instead of everybody doing their own thing.
Doing their own thing. Fair enough too. So yes, but that's what I'd like to do is go back to the 4 days until a time when something else.
Does that cover the needs of your clientele?
It does, because that allows me to be there early mornings before work and then after work. Because I do a night clinic, so it allows me to be able to span those hours.
Comments?
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So now into number 3, just want to bring the commission up to speed on all of the events because there are multiple events happening from now until the end of the year. So I'm going to start with, and let me just give a little bit of background because I'm not sure if we've ever discussed this with this commission, and that is that part of my job as the Bannock County Veterans Coordinator is to support the local veteran service organizations. So that's like the American Legion, the VFW, the Marine Corps League, in any fashion that we possibly can that's achievable. So that's where these community events, a lot of them come from. So the homeless stand down is going to be October 29th. I have minimal participation in the planning of that event. My participation in the majority comes from the Saturday event itself, where I'm there to provide services to the veterans who come into that event. So I have been to a couple of planning meetings, but it's pretty minimal. But you guys should be aware of that I'm participating in that. Then we have the Farm Bureau Salute on the 4th of November. Again, that's not a service organization, that's just a community event that we do. There will be a James E. Johnson proclamation reading, I guess, on November 2nd. Not a fan of the date. And if they ask me, I will tell them not a fan of the date. And the reason is because I don't believe we should be celebrating this hero on the date that the government declared him dead. I believe that it should either be the date he was last seen in a heroic fight where he was fending off the Chinese single-handedly, lobbing grenades, taking small arms fires while his Marines walked off at the Chosin Reservoir Hill. That's December 2nd. Or we should be celebrating the day that his Medal of Honor was signed, which is in March. My own opinion, again, I'm not the one making that call, but I will support whatever the service organization is doing. And right now, they're looking at November 2nd. Veterans Day, and that service organization, my understanding, is going to be AMVETS. They got kind of convoluted because everybody belongs to all the organizations, but I think that is a specifically supported by all the VSOs, but AMVETS is the lead group on that one. Veterans Day celebration, the traditional ceremony is going to be on, of course, November 11th at 11 o'clock. That is always when that happens at the Memorial Building. This year, my understanding is they rotate through who's going to be responsible for it. My understanding is this year it's the American Legion. We also have a wonderful addition this year. I think it's very worthwhile. Oh, and the Veterans Day events, I'm not planning that either, okay? But I'll support that. So there's a Veterans Day parade this year. I think it's fantastic. I love that they're going to do it. It's sponsored by the VFW primarily. I will be announcing the day of the event, but I do not attend any of the planning. I just don't have the time to do that. There is going to be another event in honor of James E. Johnson. It's going to be a James E. Johnson Gala at the university. I don't have many details on this. It's going to be November 11th. Sounds like it's going to be in the evening. It's going to be at the SPAC. It is something, my understanding is something about a scholarship or an endowment or something in his name at the university. I don't know that much about it, but that's where we're at. And then I am planning to do the Pearl Harbor Remembrance again on December 7th. We did it at 11 o'clock last year, but I will have to tell you, switching the time that we did the 9/11 ceremony, the dinner was so well received afterwards, and it was so nice. Part of me is like, yeah, we do it at 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock on a Wednesday. People can come for lunch. But the relaxing dinner piece of that, it was really nice. The dinner was really nice. So I'm open to maybe some ideas about that between now and really flyer time about what time that should be. So if anybody has any ideas or suggestions about that, that would be great. All right, so those are our community events that are happening. Now, going into the new year, in the past I have done an education series. I'm going to bring that back possibly with your permission. I usually write a grant to the state of Idaho, to the Veterans Support Fund. They usually grant us about $3,000 to do an education series in the area. That education series consists of 4 different parts that I do at different stages of the year. The first one is an estate planning workshop. We usually get sponsorship in that as well from the different mortuaries in town. And insurance companies as well. A couple of attorneys will volunteer their time, and they will actually, at that event, a veteran actually leaves there with an executable will and a plan for the end of life, including nursing home, all of that stuff that occurs that you need to plan for and prep for. The second one is the 3 E's of reintegration: employment, education, and entrepreneurship. We usually do that around the Department of Labor area and bring in different people to talk about those things: education, employment, and entrepreneurship. So SBA plays a pretty big role in that for us too. Then the third one is a financial fitness and a home ownership, so that veterans can understand the home loan process, how that works, and ask questions and be able to ask those questions or hear those answers if they're uncomfortable asking those questions, and understand how that process works for them. And also because veterans, sometimes when you go right from living at your parents' house who handle your money right to being controlled by your first sergeant, you don't really do money yourself, and now you're 26 years old and it's the first time you're doing money yourself where you're not being controlled by it, and you need a little help. So we pull in that financial fitness piece, help people understand what their credit report looks like, the importance of that. And then the 4th education series I entitled the special groups. This is where we would pull in and bring in Agent Orange topics, Gulf War topics, PTSD and TBI, women, and the new one that I think we're going to integrate is the LGBTQ+ piece, because veterans fit into that category, and we need to start being more cognizant of that and more receptive of that piece. So bring those special groups in. So if you guys are okay with me proceeding forward with that grant like I have, I think the last time I requested the grant was 16 or 17.
It's been a while. You also have in that trust where United Way gave you money, you still have $2,400 in there.
Oh, I thought I had spent all of
No,
that.
there's $2,417 and change. So that could get you started.
That could get me started on that. I probably wouldn't even, have to ask for, the grant, at least to begin the education. The estate planning workshop is the most expensive, because I actually build that binder that has all the different pieces in it, and it comes together so when a person leaves there, they have their obituary plans written out, they have their life insurance information, nursing home stuff, they can pre-register for cemeteries. I mean, it's a binder.
But by expensive, it's Melissa expensive, not normal expensive.
I'm cheap.
She's
all
very
right?
frugal. So that $2,400 will probably get you through,
Yeah, it will.
at least probably 2 or 3 of them.
It'll get me, it'll definitely get me the estate planning workshop. And it would probably get me through most of the 3Es integration. That one has a little workbook too, but just so that people have a nice tool to keep with them always in that.
Let's go ahead and move along.
Okay, all right. And the last one is Toys for Tots. So again, this is one of those pieces that comes in with the supporting the service organizations. This is where we support the Marine Corps League. I sectioned this one off because I really want to talk about it and make sure that we're all perfectly clear on how this works, because it can get messy because my husband is the coordinator. So my life at home and at work end up being kind of this weird messy area, more messy than normal. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys as the commission are aware that my husband is the coordinator for Toys for Tots. But as Bannock County, regardless of who the coordinator was, we would still support the Marine Corps League by accepting their applications to our office and handing those applications out to people who came up and requested them.
But we're not financially backing anything that he's doing, so.
We're not financially backing, we're just the address, so that it's not his address. And we would do that for any of the,
And you're not his supervisor in this.
I'm not his supervisor. I tell him what to do. I do tell him what to do, but I'm not.
I'm gonna let him know that this is the only time during the year that you can't tell him what to do.
Perfect. He'll appreciate that. So with that, the space that the Marine Corps League has been donated for their campaign this year is actually the old Midas building right down the street on Clark, so 525 Clark Street. Everything has been handled, the power, the water, the gas, all of that is all handled. The one thing that the league was wondering if we could do, don't know if it's possible, I told them I would ask, and that is, would it be possible for the county to run and scrape that parking lot if it snows?
I have a tough time doing that because it's a private business, private lot, and we don't go on anybody else's private lots, and I have a tough time stepping over that boundary.
Okay.
For liability issues, I would prefer not to.
Okay,
to
just wanted
approach
to
that.
see where that was at. We will go and ask, I mean, there's other people that do that will donate. We just wanted to make sure if that was a possibility.
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. We'll clear that up. Okay. And that's all I have.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Jerry?
Good morning. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Kerry Hong, Trial Court Administrator. If you hadn't met already, want to introduce Jason Dye. Jason is a state employee, former Bannock County employee for almost 18 years. He is the Deputy Trial Court Administrator, so he'll be picking up all the wreckage that I leave behind. And then
Adam McKinney, Chief Technical Officer.
Dan Kendall, Project Manager.
we'd like to thank you for the time for the agenda item. I made the mistake of scheduling meetings on top of meetings. I have a call with ISU, so I'm going to try and get the conversation going, and then I'll come back and assist however we can. But we wanted to bring to the commission two things. One this morning, and they're both interrelated. The first one is, well, let's actually take these up in sequence. To address the plan to engage in courtroom remodels in FY23, we were able to do the walkthrough with Commissioner Mosier, with Braden and Dan and myself, looking at the proposal to build a new courtroom in room 214. Once that's completed, move Judge Jarman down there temporarily. move the work up to the 3rd floor, remodel Judge Jarman's courtroom, and then the completion of both those remodels and having everybody settled in their proper places, move the arraignment courtroom from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor, and then turn the courtroom space currently occupied in 119 to the county for potential use of a HR conference or HR offices and county conference and training room. That, in a quick summary, is the intent of the first agenda item.
We identified funds.
Commissioner Mosier, we've identified a couple different funds. So in FY23, in the district court fund, the county has budgeted $60,000 for capital. We also have approximately $40,000 in the court facilities trust.
I have a budget of 60.
Of 60 in court facility? Well,
Oh, no, 30, sorry.
30. In terms of current cash balance or in terms of spending authority?
Spending authority.
Okay. And then those are the two budget items we have identified right now. You'll see in Dan's estimates that I believe he included in the packet that 60 in capital and 30 in facilities trust don't cover the proposed expenses for the courtrooms, or the estimated expenses for the courtrooms. I don't know if the county had additional ideas of line items to consider to move the project forward.
I spoke with Christie a little bit, but
We just had a budget of 450 in capital acquisitions, but when the clerk put together their recommendation for FY23, that was for all countywide, all county buildings, projects. So,
It's also this road out here too.
yes,
So,
it's a vacation of that road and any other items that may come up. The total that estimated that Dan came up with was $214,000. So if we take the 90 off that, it's 124 if we used that, but that's a fourth of the money.
these are projects that we've talked about long enough. I think it's time to move forward. It would make everybody's position a whole lot better. The courts and HR conference room down there, if we can identify the funds specifically, I'd like to move forward with it.
Go for it, get it done.
Do you want me to earmark the $124,000 from capital acquisitions?
Yeah.
Get ready to buy a bunch of stuff because it's going to get really cheap.
yeah, good timing.
I'd say that we do. Like I say, we've talked about it since I've been here.
Yeah, let's move. Let's go.
And I go up there and see the judge has rolled off her podium and, no, we can't have that.
Yeah.
Just can't.
What order would you like to spend the funds? The money in district court is budgeted as Jarman's courtroom.
Go ahead.
So that one will need to
That one will
be
go that
that
one
way because that was the
specifically,
intent. But if we use maybe the 30,000 for 218 and then the difference, the remaining 50 can come from capital acquisitions. And then once you get to Jarman's, you can spend the 60 and then the 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That work?
Yeah.
Is that good with you?
So we'll go in order, like I say, second floor, third floor, and then the basement.
Dan, are you going to try and general it all, or are you going to put it out to bid?
I want to general it, yeah.
Okay.
We have a lot of the work done on the second floor already, where we did a carpet and ceiling and lighting and that kind of thing, so we kind of got a jump start on it, so feel pretty confident we can handle it,
Okay.
get her done quick.
Okay.
And then we'll just keep in communication. If we're going to expend more than the 214, then we'll come back before and get budget authority expended.
Okay.
Just make sure that as you go forward, work with Shannon, make sure that some of those that will probably, I'm assuming the cabinet bid and some of those others we're going to have to go to bid on.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with the commission, the second agenda item that I had was permission to expend end-of-year funds within the district court to pre-purchase some of the furnishings that we'd need for the remodels and construction that we just discussed. In particular, Valley Office was able to secure and deliver 22 office chairs. that we'd be using for both the jury box, for counsel table, and for judicial assisting in the 2 courtrooms that would be remodeled. They're actually here and delivered. If we can't use end-of-year funds within the district court fund to pay for those, then we'd shift those costs into FY23 as part of the project out of next budget year.
No, if we can use this year's, let's do it today and do it.
One of the things that I was thinking about Valley and all the other office suppliers is, and this is going to be a legal question, is when we start looking at all of the individual purchases that we do with each one of those, I can almost guarantee that they break some of these purchasing minimums for state procurement bid. And what we really need to have happen is we probably need to start looking at this and start understanding, as we go through and we buy, all these different offices buy all this different stuff, the state law doesn't care about that. It's all under our umbrella, so we probably need to start looking at when we're purchasing chairs, when we're buying stuff, we're putting out a office request and we're putting it out to bid of, hey, in this next year, we're going to need 200 chairs, we're going to need 5 desks, we're going to need this. I know that's kind of a pain in the butt to do, but I can almost guarantee we've probably broke the threshold a couple times on this by not doing it.
I don't know about that, but.
Well, I know how much, I signed how much they spent, we're close.
No, but I'm saying, like, you definitely want to look if you're aggregating, right? Like, you can't go piecemeal if it's for one project and try to go under the bid laws that way. But if they're for other things, then you can piecemeal. That would take a case by case.
But it would be
basis.
where a lot of this, you could state that the annual purchasing of these properties.
The matter is we
should bid it.
If we bought 200 chairs instead of
Yeah, we should bid
20
it.
chairs, and we know it, that just means that we're budgeting and planning ahead of time instead of, but this was,
Yes, this is
they talked
understood.
about it when we went up there, and if
Yeah, I
we
get
could
it.
spend some monies and get it done this year, I'm all in favor of that.
Appreciate the commission's support. If you don't mind, I'm going to step out, and if Dan, if there are any additional questions for Dan, Jason, or Adam, on the request. But thank you for listening.
Thank you.
We are easily.
Anything?
I'm good to go. Yeah, we're ready to go.
All right.
We've been anticipating.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Steve. Waited patiently.
Learned a lot.
It's a learning day.
Steve Herzog, Bannock County Prosecuting Attorney. I think we're here continuing our conversation about and recruitment. And just for the record, I had a good discussion a couple times with Braden over some issues that I can address as we kind of go forward on this.
Okay. And this wasn't scheduled for an executive, so this is on the record.
Nope.
And I've thought a lot about it. I have don't want to call anything a stipend. There's retention that we could have a conversation about. I'm not at the same numbers that were originally talked about $1,000 a month. I'm more of giving a retention of like $5,000, and there's been a conversation of that's $5,000 that they would receive, so their taxes would be on top of that, benefits would be on top of that type of situation. But it's a one-time deal. It's not you know, if we come around to next year's budget, it'd be another conversation. That's,
So would it be a one-time upon hire? So for current employees, we give them a $5,000 payment right then and there, or whenever determined. And then if we hire a new attorney, they would get it upon hiring, or
Well, the
what's the
second
thought?
part of that is to change the hiring practice to based on experience.
Yeah.
And then there would be no hiring bonus. The hiring bonus would be in the wage that we pay based on the experience we get. So we're not getting the low-level attorneys, we're getting something with some experience and something that way. That's a direction I think I would like to travel with that.
Well,
So, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and what I was saying is to go with that, that's something that I've observed the last 2 or 3 months fairly well. Especially in the higher professional occupations. You have lawyers that are there, and we're trying to attract other attorneys, and we're bringing attorneys in based upon their experience level. And a lot of organizations now grade out intermediate, advanced, senior, and principal. And so that's, a lot of it is, yeah, you have attorneys that are willing to come work, but we're talking about starting them all the way a bit down here, when we should be talking about, oh, you've been a practicing attorney for 5 or 6 or 7 years, so you've actually worked for smaller counties, you've actually done this, you have a felony background history, you have misdemeanor background history. No, really, you should be graded in at a higher level. And that's something in the professions, especially in the professional professions, I mean, that you're going to be looking at. I mean, you wouldn't, and I just don't think it's a lawyer thing. I mean, as I look at, in all the different offices, we need to be looking at that, because that's how you will keep attorneys or those people. We're never going to match the private sector. That's impossible. That's never going to happen. But what you're doing is you're recognizing where people are at. And I think that's something that industries move to that, a lot of other governmental organizations have moved to that, and that's something that we probably need to pursue.
Well, you consider hiring someone as a senior prosecutor who's going to handle felonies that has, whatever, a year or 2 experience, because that's where they need to be, where the need is that position. Then you hire someone else who's got 6 or 8 years of experience, whose skill level is much more developed, and they come in at the same. That's, I think, where the, depending, DOE, depending on experience, would be a good approach to take.
Well, and it goes for, and like I said, I think that really needs to be something we look at in all offices, not just this one. I mean, you have HR, you have lawyers, but even into your office. So a lot of the stuff and the problems in your hiring and some of that stuff is just that how we grade out. You have somebody that's an accountant or a CPA or a governmental background and has been doing it for 5 or 10 years, you shouldn't be bringing them in as the entry level on the totem pole. I mean, if that person has the experience level, and I've seen this because I've went through my own personal processes in the last little bit, and this is one of the best ways that retention is, that people have found that retention is to keep people is, hey, you have some killer person that's doing their job, that's why you're getting them in. You're bringing them in as a senior. You're bringing them in as the principal that is the subject matter expert in that area, because they've done it for 10 years. That's, or whatever you said in how you grade. And all those families are different. And that's one of the problems we're going to run into. What it does for budgeting is it would cause in the next year, or when you started to do this, you budget then for the principal position, or whatever your highest level is, and it gives you that flexibility inside. There's no more than of how you do that. Of, hey, if you get somebody that hires in as an intermediate that's going to come in as a brand new lawyer right out of the gate that's just barely passed their bar, maybe did some judge clerking and that's it. Yeah, okay, there's some salary in there that you have, but you actually budgeted because you authorized the principal attorney in that position. What that does then is that doesn't force us every time to try and figure out, hey, how do we come up with we all just stare at Christie and say, hey, go rub the rocks together and make the money show up, make it come out of nowhere. And that's a very difficult.
It's not even October 1 yet, though.
Yeah. But these are lessons.
We just put out a budget, we haven't gone into it yet, and we're talking about spending funds that we don't have.
But that's what I'm saying, this is why there's some of these lessons that we might need to look at as an experiment coming into this next year. That's how you do it, because then it's no more of, hey, we got to scramble, or we have to try and do this, or whatever. There's some budget that's in there. If we use it, great. If we don't use it, it goes back in the general fund. You put it in reserves next year. But coming back to the prosecutor's problem, hey, there's no prosecutors, there's no public defenders, the jail's going to get opened up. I mean, you're going to have some, but crime's going to go rampant, and it's going to be an issue. retentionary thing of how do you do that? You know, I've read and thought about this a lot as I've had a lot of window time. And as I look at it, I would look at it as a retentionary bonus is okay if, what are we holding people to? The attorneys are never going to match the private sector. Attorneys are going to be doing it because they want to be here in a public calling. So how do you make it work a little bit better? I always lean back to, I would rather give a monthly shorthanded stipend and bonus or emergency hiring, emergency provisions, because it's not counted as part of your salary or wages, and if it goes away, it goes away. Hey, this is here until we can have whatever. You're going to see hiring and employment numbers probably start to change in the next 9 months or so is what economic forecasts are because of what's happening. So I'm more of the, hey, why don't we do a $500 or $1,000 a month until we are fully staffed, and then you look at adjusting your time off, PTO. We can't even talk about that right now because we don't have any people to do that. So if we look at, hey, we want to have, you know, a $500 or $1,000 a month stipend. If you're working here, you're getting it. As long as you stay working here, you're getting it. Then people know, hey, you're here, and you have it until you're up to fully staffed, and then you have a discussion next year in the budget of where you're going, if it becomes permanent or if it goes. If people want to leave, people are going to leave. But that's part of the work-life balance, because you can't even talk about people taking time off or doing anything for that other leg of the stool until we get people.
Well, I'm going to disagree a little bit, and this week over at Boise, we talked with the other county commissioners of similar size, and it's not a unique issue to Bannock County being short, and Twin Falls, that's kind of where Ernie came up with the number, and I agree with that. They pay between $2,500 and $5,000 as a retention bonus or a hiring bonus, but they're like us, they have 5 or 6 open positions and 0 applicants, and so I understand the need to go month to month with it, but I think, and Steve and I have talked about this, so I'm going to go down that path for just a second, Steve. One of the things that Braden turned up in his discussion on this is, well, I want a return on my investments. If I'm going to invest in these employees by giving them a thing, I want something back in return other than just, hey, we're going to stay. One of the things Braden turned up is there's some issues within the office and some of the leadership in there that are causing people to want to leave. And so Steve and I talked about a couple different plans, and again, I don't want to tell Steve how to run his office, but we need to do something to address that issue that is not speaking to that work-life balance or creating an environment that people want to stay and be a part of. And so I like pay it up front, give them that nice bonus. We're not meeting the $1,000 a month that has been talked about, which gives me some consternation that people already have that number in their head. But we give them that up front, we gross it up, so they get a full $5,000 check, and you have to stay for a year.
There's no way to do that.
Yeah, there is.
Everybody's different.
You just gross it up. You figure out what their
Well, I can gross it up, but depending on what their deductions are, I can't say, okay, you have 8 exemptions and you have 1. We would have to do that on an individual basis. Is that what you're wanting us to do?
There's not that many people, so yes, that's what I'm wanting you to do.
Okay.
If we go down this path. But the other thing is, I think between doing this DOE, the pay, and then addressing the internal issue, I think we're in a spot that we can go.
Yeah, and I've had these same discussions. I like where this is going. I've talked to some exiting employees and ones that are there, and I think a big piece of this is with all the vacancies, there's a lot of increased caseload, right? Yes. And that pressure, it's creating kind of a spiral effect, right? And then I think a big thing from people I've talked to is just this appreciation for the extra work, the going the extra mile kind of thing for during this difficult time. And I don't know, this would be unprecedented for us, but as we talk about kind of these short-term stipends or bonuses, if if there's any way we could tie it to caseload or the if you're doing this, these cases are very challenging, right? And so we can tie some kind of appreciation to the difficulty of what we're asking them to do, right? And I don't have an exact manner for doing that but I think it's possible to develop something like that. And especially someone like, I think, is it Zoe that comes to mind that's doing those sexual cases that are just...
Right, Erin's doing...
And Erin's doing those, right, and it's like, oh my gosh, if she's doing these kind of cases that are really messy and challenging and time-consuming, and then maybe there's someone else that's maybe doesn't have quite that kind of cases, consider that in the mix too.
So along that line, what if we give a gross amount to the prosecutor's office? And Steve decides where the money needs to go.
That's doable.
Well, and, I mean,
yeah,
and instead of trying, and that would be, yeah.
Like a countywide, no way.
How many attorneys do you have?
This one situation,
One
yes.
fully staffed,
Yeah.
How many positions?
12 including me.
Okay.
I don't know,
and trying to
talk about it.
And yeah, I mean,
I don't know the workload of all your people. And we would do the same, if we went to other departments, where's the gross amount?
well, and grossing it up and doing that, and I understand what you want to do with having that. I have kind of a problem because it's going to show in somebody's thing that somebody is going to get a higher amount than somebody else. And whenever you give a higher amount than a lower amount, whatever. But now what I'm saying is if you just give the prosecutor, here's 90 grand, or whatever the number is, go divvy it up as you see fit.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
Because then it's not a, hey, we're trying to calculate, hey, somebody else has 4 kids, or 3 kids, or 1 kid, or 2 kids.
and the matter is, if we do that, and then over a public defense, we say, okay,
There is.
I don't care how many attorneys you have, there's your
You have
90,000.
to come up with a way to justify it.
Easy, caseload and difficulty.
Yeah, there is risk of discrimination complaints.
But that's,
So we would have to be able to document and justify.
Well, there's the criteria.
We just create a criteria and
it's
come up with.
fortunate that we have an entire office full of lawyers that can help write that criteria.
Yeah. There's some danger, but I think it's doable personally.
This is not a union. Where everybody gets exactly the same thing, no matter what you do.
Well, and like I said, there's
Plain and simple.
if you want to do it, where you just have
We're a right to work state, and
if you put
they already,
your basic criteria can be positive attitude or positive force for the office,
I'm okay if we,
positive workload, type of case,
the number.
as per determined by the prosecutor.
So,
We can come up with.
I mean, that's fairly simple, and it's hey, as I can tell, hey, you're doing misdemeanors and you're doing sex crimes. There's a little bit different here in what you're at. Hey, you show up to work and you're mean and ignorant to everybody and you're happy. That's a.
Let's be careful. Yeah. Not to find stuff that's measurable and easy to.
Well, it doesn't always have to be. It doesn't always have to be measurable. It can be a quantitative or it can be qualitative. It doesn't have to be, everybody wants hard metrics. And if you want hard metrics, then that's where we start getting into real issues and problems. So quantitative or qualitative, as long as it says, hey, to the discretion of the prosecutor, for how you want to do it. You have people that, we don't know if there's people that have had disciplinary issues. We don't know if there's people that have been awarded for success for going above and beyond, and that can also be a determination and a factor of how you break it down.
Yeah.
And so,
There certainly should be some guidelines.
Yes.
but that's going to be, I mean, guidelines would have to be written and come back for approval. It then takes away the burden of, then it's just, the prosecutor is going to give a list of, hey, this is the breakdown, and then the auditor's office doesn't have to try and go in and play that.
I guess then the next questions would be, what's the amount, and where's the funds coming from?
How many employees are in?
There's 12
12?
attorneys.
Well, and are you just doing attorneys, or are you going into the others?
There might be some of that, and that's it. So I did 12 attorneys, and I was trying to get to Jeff, where you were talking about grossing it up to 5,000.
Yeah.
And if you figure deductions and taxes, you could be anywhere from, 7,000 a person over. So I got to 80, 90 grand. So,
Including Steve?
Including vacancies?
Yeah.
11 including Steve.
So, for me, we were we were about 89,000 bucks for that, so I just put it at 100 grand, and that hers I'd go with it.
So here's a concern that was brought to me by a citizen. So this is not me bringing this up, Steve. I just got this morning. But the citizen had watched our discussion, and they raised the concern of not giving a stipend to the elected official because the elected official is the elected official. They signed on for the job regardless. And I'm not advocating one way or the other. It was just, I received the email and shared it with Braden, and so I'm just bringing that up as a concern.
Well, I can tell you, I won't be giving myself anything. This is how it pans out.
He's made that clear, I think, from the
Okay.
beginning.
So, I just wanted that noted.
No, that's,
We received that, and I brought it up.
yeah, that's fair.
So, and looking at the whole picture, you'd probably end up doing the same thing with public defense.
Well, I don't know, right now, I have a real hard time because public defense doesn't have a job if there's not enough attorneys in the prosecutor's office. And this is the problem that I have. The parity that we have insisted upon has actually gotten out of hand. And so I'm going to go back and I'm going to change parity and say, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to take all of the cases that are covered by private attorneys away in their case count and a bunch of other stuff. And as we start looking at this, I have a much more advantageous thing and say, hey, public defenders, if you're mad and want more money, you can go be a prosecutor then, because that's, unfortunately, that's where the main need is right now. Is if prosecutors are not here,
I'm with Terrell on this.
there is no reason to have public defenders then. But, I mean, sorry.
I'm with Terrell.
It's a need-based industry. I'm not saying that we don't address the public defense issue, and I think we have. I think there are some issues that we need to have, and I've talked to some people and understanding maybe some case dynamics. I'd like, before we even have that discussion, I'd like to come sit down and have a discussion with you, Steve, about some stuff, because I think that might help me shed some light on it. But I think there's some public defender stuff that, and we need to probably have and once I get to the bottom of some discussions with some other people, I think there might be an executive session with the board that I'd like to discuss some specific, we have to be very careful. We cannot request, ask, or direct your office of how you prosecute crime. That's completely in your purview. And we cannot direct, ask, interfere with the public defenders in how they defend. But I think there might be some ways to have some discussions about maybe possibly fixing some things in some of these offices that might actually lead to some better product.
Well, I'm all about that, because again, I don't want to just throw money at a problem and not address the root cause or solve the issue, so.
So, identification of funds, ARPA.
Originally, that's what we had talked about, was ARPA.
I'd use ARPA for this. This is
one of those things where, as bad as I hate to, I think that's appropriate.
Well, and then the email we got this morning, we're going to receive $500,000 this year, $500,000 next year through
the SRS PILT stuff.
I mean,
That, I briefly looked at that, I'll look at that a little bit more. It looks like we have to apply for those.
Yeah, which
I thought it was just being distributed.
I'll look at it more. I have like...
Yeah, I know, I just forwarded that to you real quick, but if I remember right, that is,
well, it says...
Is it on top of
that email?
Is it on top of PILT?
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's on top of PILT, yeah, there might be some kind of application process for it, but whatever we have to, I mean...
But those funds have to be distributed today, and that's why that funding formula came out.
Okay. All of that, but we don't have those funds yet.
No, we don't have them yet.
So if we plan just to use ARPA, we can write a check out of the ARPA,
Reimburse
deposit it into prosecutor's budget. We'll have to go through the open budget process so that we can accept it.
If it's $100,000, I have no problem taking it out of that.
So if you'll just let me know how much it is, and I can anticipate benefits on top of it.
Honestly, right now.
And if we, and let's talk about budget for just a second, because if we're talking about hiring based on experience, that causes severe budget issues. I understand that, but I was thinking about this a little bit last night, and then this is another one of those things where I think, okay, maybe can we use some ARPA funds for just this year so that we can plan budgetarily for whatever we do, adjustments we talk about, that like hiring based on experience this year, and make additional changes in next year's budget. Would that solve some of the heartburn?
Yes and no. Yes, it definitely does. Only no, because next year, if we're going to have to already commit monies for next year, and the market tanks, or, I mean, it's going to potentially cause some distress on FY24's budget. I know this needs to be addressed, but maybe we could have a different conversation of maybe the salary schedule. Maybe we readjust the salary schedule so that we have a little bit more flexibility in the wages that we pay. Maybe we top people out faster than we do now. Maybe we get rid of 10 steps. Maybe we just relook at how this is done, and then maybe if we're going to change categories of attorney grades, when we hire them in, how's that going to impact? Are we going to have prosecuting attorney grades and then public defender grades? Because that's going to throw an impact over on them as well.
That's a discussion we're going to end up having to have.
So as far as budgetary impact, if we just make it easy and say, okay, we're going to keep everything the same, but we're going to hire at a 16.8, then yeah, we just move money and fund it, but.
Well, that's why with the steps and levels, we got to that done.
I was concerned about impact going forward, but I thought if we use ARPA just to fund it this year, because then we don't have to go through some of the budgetary gyrations, but I understood there would be an impact next year, but I wasn't.
But if we move, I would want to move ARPA monies. So maybe what we do is we do this stipend thing, and then maybe we give them another $100,000. And that's what is to be used for all the pay, for hiring people within.
We are not giving stipends.
Well,
No way we're giving stipends.
We gotta have all the money there now. I don't necessarily want to pay for salaries out of the ARPA fund. We want to keep it within this. And I don't want to have to move money every single time we hire somebody.
Right.
So if we can earmark a dollar amount, get the range of what you think you're going to need to pay people. I know it's a total absolute shot in the dark, but we could just throw another dollar amount there so that we would have that to be used. That I think would be the best practice. It still scares me for next year.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
But, and again, I'll have to adjust.
It was just a thought.
Yeah, and that would make it easier. If we just had a dollar amount and then just hire within however you need to.
So, I'd kind of like a motion then, if we're going to say $100,000 and then identify funds, just so we keep moving forward.
I think what you need is, I think we need to put some funding, put a funding memo together and maybe have some qualifications before we actually have the formal motion. Just get everything together.
Moving forward. I don't want to.
Let's get it written up together and then go that way, because then that way you have.
Maybe you want to put us together something to look at.
Yeah, I'd rather come up with a dollar amount, make sure it's the correct amount before we make a motion to move money, because we could have it, worst case, we could have it next Thursday. That gives us about a week to get it put together.
I just want to keep moving forward. I don't want to.
And then, as far as the culture issue, I'd like you to just give us something of what your plan is for that, so we're aware.
I'll tell you right now, in general, Braden and I are going to sit down and talk to the employee early next week about kind of perceptions and get the ball rolling.
Okay. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And that may be a good thing that comes out of all, I mean, there may be a lot of good things that come out of this, but...
Well, I want you to know I appreciate the conversation we had and your willingness to have that discussion, so thank you.
Sure.
Okay? Anything else?
Thank you. No.
Ready break? Christie?
Mine will be fast.
And then we got a few other things behind
Administrative things.
Okay, the board signed the L2. When I went through all of the training with State Tax Commission on budget levy, they told us we would be able to still levy for the indigent fund. That is not the case. And I did not find that out until I was entering everything into the web L2, and that wasn't an option.
So they've been giving us,
So I called the State Tax Commission, asked them what to do. They said that we could just move those dollars up to levy from current expense, and as long as the bottom line didn't change, they did not foresee that there would be a problem.
okay.
So I have a couple of options to run past you. We're talking about $1,418.94.
Okay.
I already say that. $1,418,094. What I did on the L2 is I just moved that dollar amount up to the general fund, added the approved budget to that dollar amount. And the options come in afterwards. We're going to get $808,000 in public defense money, and that was the dollar that they didn't get us until, well, we had already done the L2. So I couldn't anticipate those as property taxes, which is why we levied as the indigent fund. So when I take out the $808,000 that we're going to get deposited into the indigent fund, then that actually means the indigent fund is not going to be made whole by $610,000. Options are, we can use reserves, or because we're going to levy the money in the general fund, I can move either all $1,418,000, or I can just move the $610,000. Are you tracking? Let me see if I can. It's kind of weird. The easy thing is just to make them whole property tax-wise, but then when the general fund, or when the indigent fund goes away, that'll roll up into the general fund. If we leave the monies in the general fund, it's more flexible for use. So probably the easy thing to do is just when we get the property tax monies, I roll down the $610,000 to indigent, making their budget whole.
Roll it from general down.
Yeah. And then the general fund will be ahead by the $800,000. But because we, like I said, we did not have that state money when we were doing the budget, I had to make them whole. I had no idea if we were getting $1,200,000, $1,800,000, or $500,000. So we just did what we had to do to make them whole. If I did the full $1,000,000, that would give them extra monies if we needed to do any salary stuff there.
Yeah.
But not, anyways.
Yeah.
So.
600.
I like the 600.
Okay. And sorry, until last week on, I believe it was Wednesday, was when I discovered this when I was trying to do the L2s. And I was a little irritated.
Do we need a motion on that, or are you okay with just the discussion?
Maybe what I'll do is when it comes down to the transfer, I'll have you sign it.
Okay.
That won't be until, the earliest would be December, but I would probably rather do it in July, because then we'll have the full tax collection.
Okay.
And I know I'll have all of the dollars.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Well, again, the direction is take the 600 from the general.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next we have resolutions. Resolution 2022-76, burn ban extended.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we sign or approve resolution 2022-76, extending the burn ban.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next we have, for letters, signatures, we have a notice of a public hearing.
Vacating 6th Street, or no, that's Robin Road.
Yeah. And then the other one is tax cancellation letters.
Oops. We don't sign that one.
No, this one, go over there.
Oh, goes to
Nancy.
Okay, sorry.
That one's for Nancy.
That's why it came back. So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the tax cancellation letters and the, what was that, the resolution?
Public hearing.
The public hearing notice.
A motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Next is signature contract amendment number 5 with the state of Idaho. And then a memo, we already did the memo of the travel request?
Yeah, we did the memo.
Okay. This is indigent services. Not just my signature on that one. So, we probably need a motion on that one. Amendment number 5.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve contract amendment number 5 with the state of Idaho.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Next we have residency. And then we have minutes for September 15th, 21st, 22nd.
Mr. Chairman, we approve residency and minutes as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that being said, we